Okay, I'm gonna just start. I'm gonna again remember that I have not very much space underneath my pot. It's probably 1/4 of an inch in the center, so I don't want to dig down too deeply when I'm trimming the bottom. So I've got my wheel spinning counterclockwise because I'm right-handed. All right, and you can see that it's wobbling, it's not in the center. So how do we figure out how to make it in the center? Well, what I do is I brace myself very carefully on my splash pan, and I draw a simple line around the outside bottom where I'm going to trim by just letting the pot hit the needle tool where it may. So if I look at the side, and I don't know that I'll be able to illustrate that for you so easily here in the video, but I have a line that goes not quite half the mark. So I'm just going to make little lines here so you can see where they start, where this line stops and start. So then what I do is I center the line in front of my body, and then I put my index fingers on the ends of the line, and I push away from myself ever so slightly so as to try to bring the circle all the way around the pot when I draw it again. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of, I think I may have bumped it when I was showing you. So I'm gonna do it again. All right, and then again, I have to be able to distinguish my new mark from my old mark. So I think it goes about here and here. I'm gonna try that again, and I'm gonna push away slightly. Now sometimes you need to remove the first marks that you made so that you can tell where the new marks are gonna be, because it can be confusing. And it might take you a few tries. All right, so I sometimes draw these vertical lines so I can really remember where it is that I'm supposed to be measuring from. And then I'm going to push away slightly. You can also draw the line up here, but it's very important that your foot be centered. So I've encouraged a lot of you to draw a little tool at the base of the foot when you're taking your piece off of the wheel, and that's to help make sure that the circle that you're going to begin to trim from is symmetrical. So you can see here that I have a smaller space here than I do on this side, and so that means that I really need to push the clay away from the large side and toward the small side. So you can try it like this as well. All right, and I really only need to center the very base here. So that's pretty good. It's kind of touching all the way around, and I'm holding it very gently. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to take some fresh clay, not sticky or wet, and I want to kind of roll it into a good sized coil, and then I'll divide it into two halves, and I'll place it on either side of my pot, and then I'm going to push down, and I'm not going to squish the lip of the pot, but I'm going to try to push straight down. And a little bit of the clay will push forward and hold the lip of that pot onto the wheel head. So I'm going to do this again. If the clay of your pot is really soft and you push too hard, you'll smush the lip, and you don't want to do that. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to trim away the outside edge so that you have determined how wide the base of the foot ring is going to be. All right, and so I want this to feel, I want probably the foot ring to come in quite a bit here, and I'm going to take some of this clay away. I don't want the foot to be too heavy, because then it won't make this cup very comfortable to use. I want it to be fairly uniform in thickness throughout. I also want to make sure that I'm thinking about the inside shape of the pot and the outside shape of the pot, and that I'm cutting away so that if I were to cut the whole piece in half, it would be the same shape on the inside and the outside. All right, so I hold my tool at an angle, and I usually use the wide part of my tool, and I really kind of take away a good chunk of it. So I don't want it to be too narrow, or otherwise the pot will be unstable. So I'm just kind of first cutting away with the wide part of my tool. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to differentiate between the pot and the foot ring itself. Now sometimes you'll see pots that will just have a continuous profile from the edge of the outside edge of the pot right into the foot ring, and they'll only dig out the center here. I'm going to bring in some pots for you to look at in person so that you can see how people treat the idea of a foot differently. This is just an aesthetic choice. All right, and now I'm going to use the shallow end of this tool, and I'm going to try to cut away here so I can make a ring and a bowl. They're kind of different. All right, and this is where you have to sort of remember well, like what your pot, how thick it is, so that you don't cut through the bottom and accidentally make yourself a flower pot. All right, so now I pretty much have determined the exterior edge. I have a division between the foot and the pot itself, and now I'm going to cut inside the foot ring, and I'm just going to do it gently with the side here. You can also use your small tool. So I have this tool that's like yours, and it's a little easier to control to get more delicate detail here. All right, and then you can use different edges here. I can cut in this way and make the thickness of the foot a little bit narrower. So I don't want to take too much clay away, because I remember that I didn't have a lot to trim away. Now, this is the time when, if you're not sure, you want to stop and take the pot off and really feel it and check it so that you don't trim right through it. You'll have to recenter it, but it's a small price to pay rather than having to remake the whole piece, you know. So I'm going to cut away a little bit more of this. And you can use the big tool for this too. You'll just have to experiment and see which ones you like more. And then you play with, you know, how you want to address all the edges on these, if you want them to be really soft and smooth, or if you prefer that they're a little bit coarse and rustic. Those are really just aesthetic choices. The one thing you need to be careful of is that this interior of the foot here is not higher than the foot ring itself. If that happens, then the piece will not sit well and it'll kind of wobble. I'm gonna take this apart. If you want, you know, the lines of the spirals of the cutting to show, you can leave them, or you can smooth them out. Those are aesthetic choices. So my foot's a little bit off center. You can see one side's a little thicker than the other, but I'm not that concerned with that. All right, and then I can make, you know, a few more details here if I want to, or really kind of accentuate that that ring. And you can make it, you know, very smooth, or you can have lots of different kinds of faceted edges on it. It's really up to you. If you wanted to smooth it, you know, you could add a tiny bit of water now, or just sort of burnish it in, kind of in the way that we burnish the other pieces. All right, and now I'm going to take it off and see how it looks. I know I smooshed it a little bit. See if I can kind of fix that with a little bit of hand building. It would likely stay slightly warped, but... So my piece fell off the wheel when I was showing you the demonstration earlier, and so I just tried to fix it here. So it's a little bit off center, but I'm just going to take my hand and I'm going to rework this lip a little bit. Sometimes I'll go through and cut the lip so that I have kind of a lower spot where I'm going to drink from, or if I want it to undulate and I like the sense of movement to it, I'll hand build on it. And I want you guys to think about how you might add texture to your pieces with carving and sgraffito, or if you would like to add relief and then do your underglaze work, you can do that too. But I want you to use your hand building tools to kind of customize these pieces in some way. So this is my basic cup form. And I'll just feel and see that the thickness is pretty uniform throughout, and I feel happy with that. So I'm going to leave it like that. You want to make sure your hands are clean when you do this kind of work, because otherwise you're going to end up making more work for yourself to have to remove all the little bits of clay that you add later. Okay, in the next video I'm going to show you how to do handles.